The city lights blurred into streaks of white and amber as Alara pressed her forehead to the icy window of the cab, her breath fogging the glass. Her phone, clutched tight in trembling hands, buzzed again with the hospital's number flashing on the screen. Lucien had crashed, again, and this time they said it was worse. The driver said nothing as her silence filled the cab like smoke, suffocating and thick. She swallowed hard, her throat raw from the sobs she had choked down in the last half hour. Her coat wasn't enough to stop the shivering, but it wasn't from the cold. It was from fear, from exhaustion, from loving someone who broke her again and again. The cab turned sharply, and she almost lost her balance, regaining it only by gripping the seat ahead of her. The roads were slick, much like her heart, slippery with hope and disappointment. She had memorized the route to the hospital by now, more familiar than her own dreams. And still, her heart raced like it was the first time, afraid of what she'd find. Inside the emergency ward, Alara's heels clicked too loudly against the sterile floor, drawing eyes she didn't want. Lucien's friends were there, lounging like royalty in their designer jackets, looking impossibly unbothered by the wreck that had just occurred. One of them smirked when he saw her, nudging the other with a whisper she couldn't quite catch. She stood tall despite her pounding heart, but the laughter that followed pierced through her like a knife. Surprised she came again, one muttered. He could spit in her face, and she'd still come running. Their words echoed louder than the beeping monitors behind them. She clenched her fists at her sides, fingernails digging crescent moons into her palms. But she said nothing. Her silence was the price she paid for being in love with Lucien Hale. They all knew it. She did too. And still, she walked past them and pushed open the door to his room. Lucien lay unconscious, a cut trailing down the side of his jaw like a tear carved into skin. Even bruised and bloodied, he looked devastatingly beautiful. The kind of beautiful that ruined lives. Alara moved closer, her fingers hovering just above his hand, unsure if she had the right to touch him. A nurse passed her a clipboard, mistaking her for his wife. She didn't correct her. What would she say? That she was just the girl who showed up after every crash, every betrayal, every cruel word? Lucien's chest rose and fell with the beep of the machine, steady and unbothered, unlike the storm raging in her ribcage. She finally let herself sit down, feeling the weight of 1,000 sleepless nights press into her bones. "Why do you keep doing this?" she whispered. Her voice was barely there, the ghost of a question that had no answer. Her tears slipped freely now, no longer restrained by pride. Flashbacks came in waves, cruel and merciless. Lucien's laughter, his promises, the way he held her like she was everything. And then the lies, the women, the cold distance that replaced warmth like a changing season. She remembered the last time he swore it was the final race. He had kissed her so deeply, she believed it. And now here she was again. She hated herself for it. How easily she forgave, how quickly she crumbled for him. Her love was a slow suicide, and she was too far gone to stop. She wondered if he even remembered the things he said to her when he was angry, the names he called her, the silence he used like a weapon. But here she sat, once more, weeping at his side like she owed him her heart. Maybe she did. Maybe he'd stolen it long ago and never gave it back. Or maybe she never had one to begin with, just pieces of him pretending to be whole. The doctor entered, and she stood up quickly, wiping her tears. "He'll be okay," he said, without emotion, like he'd said it 100 times before. Alara nodded, though the relief didn't touch her. She thanked him, her voice hoarse, and watched him leave. Lucien stirred slightly, murmuring something incoherent. For a second, her heart leapt. Did he call her name? But no, it was someone else's. A name that wasn't hers. She stood frozen, every hope inside her dying a small, cruel death. Her knees almost buckled, but she caught herself on the edge of the bed. Even now, after everything, she still stayed. Not because she was strong, but because heartbreak had become her home, and she didn't know how to leave. Morning bled through the blinds, casting pale light across Lucien's hospital bed. Alara hadn't slept. She sat curled in the corner chair, her eyes red and heavy, her body aching in places even sleep couldn't soothe. Her fingers trembled as she picked at the threads of her coat, waiting, always waiting, for Lucien to wake up and pretend she mattered. When his eyes finally fluttered open, her heart leapt in her throat, desperate for something kind. But the first thing he asked was, "Where's Celeste?" Celeste. The name stabbed through her, slow and cruel. She swallowed hard, forcing her voice to remain steady. "It's me, Lucien. Alara." He blinked, as if trying to place her face. And then he turned away, sighing like her presence was a burden, like he hadn't almost died. She stood, unsure of what to do, her hands dangling uselessly at her sides. "You were in an accident," she said softly, as if reminding him of the reason she was there would anchor him to her. He didn't respond. Instead, he stared blankly out the window, the muscles in his jaw tightening. "Did Celeste come?" he asked again, like she hadn't just poured her whole soul into sitting at his side for 12 hours. Alara bit down on her tongue, feeling her pride dissolve with every heartbeat. "No," she whispered. "Just me." His only reply was silence, the kind that bruised deeper than fists. Her love had become a ghost to him, visible, but easily forgotten. It hurt more than she thought possible, but she didn't leave. She never did. Her heart had become a martyr for a man who couldn't even remember the way she cried for him. Later that day, the room filled with noise, his friends, loud and laughing, barging in like they owned the place. They barely acknowledged her. One of them made a joke about Lucien being indestructible, and another toasted with a soda, can like it was champagne. She stood against the far wall, shrinking, invisible again. Someone passed Lucien a phone, and he grinned for the first time. Texting someone? Probably her. Celeste. Alara felt her chest tighten, but she masked it with a hollow smile. One of the girls turned to her and smirked. "Still playing nurse, Alara?" she said sweetly, venom dripping from every word. "It's adorable, really. Sad, but adorable." The room erupted in laughter. Alara felt her face burn with shame, but she didn't say anything. What could she say that hadn't already been trampled under their designer shoes? When the laughter faded and the room emptied, Alara remained. Lucien didn't look at her. He just scrolled through his phone, eyes glowing softly from the screen. She forced herself to speak. "I was scared, Lucien," she whispered. "I thought you might die." He shrugged, like death was an inconvenience at best. "It wasn't that bad." Her voice cracked. "It was." He sighed, tossing the phone on the tray table. "You're too emotional. That's your problem." She stepped back, the words landing like slaps. She remembered the first time he said she was too much, too sensitive, too caring, too loyal. Now, those words came coated in disdain. She looked at the man she loved, wondering if he'd ever loved her, or if she was just the fallback plan when the world got too hard. The ache in her chest deepened, and she realized something terrifying. She loved a man who didn't feel anything when she cried. That night, as she walked back to her tiny apartment, rain soaking her already thin coat, Alara felt the weight of something break inside her. Not loudly, not all at once. Just a quiet cracking, like ice slowly splitting underfoot. She used to dream of forever with Lucien, of sunlit mornings and laughter in the kitchen. Now she only dreamed of silence, of not aching anymore. The streetlights blurred through her tears, and her feet hurt from the heels she hadn't changed since last night. But worse than the physical pain was the echo in her mind. Where's Celeste? She wondered how long she could keep breaking and still wake up the next day. Her love had become a cage. And every time she thought she could escape, Lucien whispered something cruel enough to keep her chained. Alara didn't expect flowers, not anymore. But she still hoped, quietly, shamefully, that Lucien might at least remember her birthday. She dressed in the navy blue dress he once said made her look almost perfect, curling her hair in soft waves like he liked. She waited in their favorite cafe for 2 hours, heart sinking with each tick of the clock. Around her, couples laughed, candles flickered, and wine glasses clinked with celebration. but her table stayed empty, untouched. She tried calling him, once, then twice, but it went to voicemail. She told herself he was busy, maybe stuck somewhere important. But in her heart, she already knew. He had forgotten. Again. She paid for her untouched coffee and stepped out into the rain, heels clicking on the pavement like hollow promises. The tears came before she could stop them. And for once, she didn't try to. She returned to his apartment that night, only to find music thumping behind the door. Laughter spilled out, wild and unrestrained. Her hand hovered over the handle, heart pounding like a warning drum. When she finally pushed it open, the smell of alcohol and perfume hit her like a wave. Inside, Lucien was sprawled on the couch, a girl draped across his chest, Celeste. Her lipstick was smudged, and her laugh was too loud. Alara stood frozen in the doorway, wet from rain and shaking with disbelief. Lucien glanced up lazily, his eyes bloodshot. "Oh," he said, like she was a stranger who walked into the wrong room. "Didn't know you were coming." Celeste looked at her with something between pity and amusement. "You're the friend, right?" she asked. Alara didn't answer. There were no words sharp enough to cover the wound ripping open inside her. The guests barely noticed her, treating her like she was invisible. She stood there, soaked and trembling, while Lucien poured another drink and kissed Celeste like she was the only thing that mattered. Alara turned to leave, but not before hearing him say, "She's obsessed with me. Always shows up uninvited." The words carved through her, crueler than anything he had ever said to her face. She made it down the hallway before her knees buckled, collapsing beside the elevator, her sobs echoing through the empty corridor. How had she become this? Just a shadow in his life, a joke at a party, a name he forgot when it mattered most. She had given him everything, her time, her heart, her future. And all he gave her in return was silence and shame. The following day, Alara didn't leave her bed. Her phone lit up with messages from friends she'd pushed away for him, from her mother asking if she was okay. She ignored them all. Her body felt like lead, her eyes swollen from crying. The world outside kept turning, uncaring, while her world had shattered into pieces too small to hold. She looked at the mirror across the room and didn't recognize herself. The girl staring back had hollow eyes, cracked lips, and a permanent sadness etched into her face. She wanted to scream, to break something, to make Lucien hurt the way she hurt. But she didn't move. Her love had become a sickness, and she didn't know how to cure it. All she could do was survive the day, and maybe the next, if she was lucky. That evening, Lucien called. She stared at the screen for a long time before answering. "What do you want?" she asked, voice barely a whisper.
He sighed.
"I was drunk."
"I didn't mean to say that."
She didn't respond. "You know how I get," he continued. "You shouldn't take things so seriously." Her lip quivered, but she bit it to stop the tears. "You forgot my birthday," she said. "You kissed her." He didn't apologize. Instead, he laughed softly, like her pain amused him. "Don't be dramatic, Alara. It was just a party." Her heart finally broke in a way it hadn't before, not loud or angry, but quietly, completely. "Okay," she whispered. She ended the call. And for the first time in months, she turned off her phone. The silence that followed was the only peace she had. The days passed in a haze, each one bleeding into the next like ink on damp paper. Alara barely left her apartment, afraid of the outside world, and even more afraid of the one inside her head. Her phone remained off, and the silence was both a balm and a blade. She stared at the ceiling for hours, remembering every word Lucien had thrown at her like knives. "You're too sensitive. You make everything about you. You're not enough." Over and over, his voice echoed in her mind until she no longer knew what was true. Was she really not enough? Was love supposed to hurt this much? She looked at old photos, of them smiling, of him kissing her forehead, and wondered when those moments stopped being real. Maybe they never were. She stood in front of the mirror, brushing her hair with shaking hands. Her reflection startled her. Her eyes looked empty, like something vital had been drained and never replaced. The bruises weren't on her skin, but somewhere deeper, in the places no one could see. She tried applying lipstick, a soft coral pink he once liked, but it felt like a lie, like she was painting a corpse. She wiped it off and stared at herself for a long time. Who was she without Lucien? She had built her world around him, orbiting like a forgotten moon. Her dreams, her choices, her voice, they all bent around his. And now, with him silent and distant, there was only a hollow girl in the mirror, trying to remember what it meant to be loved without conditions. When Lucien finally texted again, it was short and cold. "You okay?" Just that. No apology. No warmth. Not even a question mark. Alara stared at it for a long time. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She could type yes, like always. She could lie just like he always did. Instead, she turned her phone off again. This small rebellion felt like a scream, like a breath after drowning. But the ache didn't fade. It wrapped tighter around her chest with every beat. She still loved him.
God, she still did.
And that was the worst part. Even after all the humiliation, all the broken promises, all the nights she cried herself to sleep, she would have taken him back in a heartbeat. That kind of love wasn't romantic. It was poison. And she was still drinking. She went outside for the first time in days, walking through the park where Lucien once kissed her under the rain. It was cold now, the trees bare and skeletal, mirroring how she felt inside. Children laughed in the distance and couples held hands, but it all felt foreign, like she was watching someone else's life through a window. A woman walked past her wearing Lucien's favorite cologne, and Alara stopped in her tracks, breath stolen. The scent brought back 1,000 memories, some tender, most cruel. She sank onto a bench and closed her eyes, letting the wind sting her face. She wanted to forget. She wanted to unlove him, but the heart didn't work like that. Hers was a graveyard full of moments she couldn't bury, no matter how deep she tried to dig. That night, she found a journal tucked beneath a stack of books, one she used to write in before everything became about him. She opened it and found a page from 2 years ago. "He told me he loved me. I think he meant it. I hope he meant it." Her throat tightened. She picked up a pen and wrote, "He told me he loved me. I think he lied. I think I believed it anyway." Tears soaked the page, ink running like bruises across the paper. She wrote for hours, pouring everything she couldn't say into pages that didn't interrupt her, didn't twist her words, didn't call her dramatic. And as the night deepened, for the first time, she felt a flicker of herself returning. Small, fragile, but there. A voice whispering from within the wreckage, "You are more than what he left behind." It was a quiet Wednesday afternoon when Lucien showed up at her door. No warning, no apology, just him, leaning against the doorway with that same crooked smile that used to make her knees weak. Alara stood frozen, a dozen emotions crashing through her at once: shock, fear, hope, anger. "I was in the neighborhood," he said casually, like he hadn't disappeared for 2 weeks. His eyes swept over her, pausing on the dark circles under her eyes, the oversized sweater swallowing her frame. "You look tired." She opened the door without a word and let him in. Her body moved on instinct, long before her mind could catch up. It was like muscle memory, pain dressed up as comfort. Lucien settled onto the couch like he belonged there. He talked about everything and nothing, racing, parties, some minor scrape with the law. Alara just listened, heart thudding. It was always like this. He'd vanish, and when the silence was too loud, he'd return and pretend like nothing happened. She watched him laugh and joke, saw the way the light caught the curve of his jaw, the same one she once kissed in the dark. And for a dangerous moment, she let herself believe he missed her, that this meant something. When he turned to her and asked, "Do you still love me?" she didn't answer right away. She couldn't, because the truth was written all over her trembling hands. He kissed her that night, gently at first. Like an apology, he didn't say out loud. Her body betrayed her, responding to him like he still lived under her skin. He whispered things in her ear, sweet lies dressed as confessions. "I haven't been able to stop thinking about you. No one gets me like you do. I'm tired of everything but you." and she wanted to believe it.
God, she needed to.
For those few hours, it felt like love again, like the pain had been worth it. He held her the way he used to, arm wrapped around her waist, breathing against her hair. She fell asleep in his arms, pretending that maybe, just maybe, this time would be different. But morning came, as it always did, and Lucien was gone. He left no note, no text, not even a cold message on her phone. Just the imprint of his body on the sheets and the echo of his voice in her ears. Alara sat up, the dull ache in her chest roaring back to life. How could she still be surprised? How many times had he done this, appeared like a storm and disappeared like smoke? She stood in the bathroom staring at herself in the mirror. Mascara smudged, skin pale, lips bruised from kisses that meant nothing. She felt sick.
Used.
Broken all over again. She sank to the bathroom floor, clutching the towel like it could hold her together. The tears came silently, like she didn't even deserve to cry loudly anymore. She had begged the universe for one more chance. And it had given her this, a night of pretend love followed by an emptier morning. Later that day, her friend May showed up at her door, unannounced but determined. "You didn't answer my texts," she said, holding a bag of food. Alara let her in without protest. May took one look at her and sighed. "He came back, didn't he?" Alara nodded. May didn't yell or scold her. She just sat beside her, held her hand, and said softly, "You don't have to keep doing this to yourself." Alara looked at her, eyes brimming. "But what if he's the only one who'll ever want me?" May shook her head, fierce and gentle. "He doesn't want you. He wants control." Alara's throat closed, the truth too sharp to swallow. She laid her head on May's shoulder and cried, not for Lucien, but for all the versions of herself she had lost loving him. The girl who used to laugh loudly. The girl who used to dream. The girl who still believed love shouldn't feel like drowning. The days grew longer, slower, crueler. Lucien didn't call, didn't text. It was as if that night in her bed had never happened. As if she had never mattered. Alara went to work with hollow eyes and forced smiles, her mind trapped in the spiral of everything he didn't say. Every time her phone buzzed, her heart jumped, hope clawing back into her ribs despite everything. But it was never him. And still, she waited. She waited for the sorry that never came. The explanation that would make the pain worth it. She told herself, maybe he was scared. Maybe he was trying. But in her quietest moments, she admitted the truth. He simply didn't care. He never had. And yet, she still loved him. She couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Every part of her body ached in ways she couldn't name. People at work began to whisper. Her boss pulled her aside. "Is everything okay at home?" he asked gently. She nodded, lying through her teeth. She didn't know how to explain that her heart was dying in real time. That her love had turned into a war she fought every day, with herself. Her mother called too, her voice tight with worry. "You don't sound like you anymore, Alara." But who was her anymore? The girl who danced in the kitchen barefoot? The one who used to write poetry in the margins of receipts? That version of her had faded the day Lucien first said, "You're lucky I even bother with you." And each day since, a little more of her disappeared. She found herself at his building again. She told herself she was just walking by. But her feet betrayed her, leading her to his door like they were haunted. She raised her hand to knock, but froze. Through the glass panel, she saw Celeste again, laughing in the hallway, keys in hand. The sound of Lucien's voice followed, soft and low, the way he used to speak to her. Alara stepped back quickly, heart thudding in betrayal. She ducked behind the wall like a criminal, like a secret. She waited until the elevator dinged and the doors closed behind them before running, faster than she ever had. When she got home, she vomited in the sink. Not from what she saw, but from what she still wanted.
She still wanted him.
Even after everything. That night, she stared at her reflection for hours. She whispered every awful thing he had said to her, again and again. "You're crazy. No one else would put up with you. You always ruin everything." She repeated the words until they sounded like facts, until they replaced her own voice. And then, like something snapping inside her, she screamed. Loud and guttural. A sound pulled from the deepest, rawest place in her soul. She screamed until her throat burned, until her chest felt hollow. And then she collapsed on the floor, shaking, sobbing, begging the universe to take the love out of her body. Take it away. Please, just take it away. But it didn't. Because love, real or not, clings like a scar. And hers ran too deep. May came again the next morning. Alara didn't answer the door. She couldn't. May used the spare key and walked in to find Alara curled on the couch, wrapped in her old sweater, eyes wide and empty. Elle, she whispered, sitting beside her. Alara didn't move.
He's killing you, May said.
And he doesn't even care. Alara blinked, one tear slipping down her cheek. I know, she whispered. May didn't offer advice this time. She just held her while Alara trembled and broke again. And for the first time in weeks, Alara didn't flinch when someone touched her. Maybe, just maybe, she could still be held without being hurt. The message came late at night.
Come over.
I miss you. 5 words. That was all it took to shake her resolve. Alara stared at her phone for a long time, her fingers trembling. She had promised herself she wouldn't go back. May's voice echoed in her head. He's killing you. But her heart, traitorous and aching, whispered louder. What if he means it this time? She got up, moving like a sleepwalker, pulling on the first coat she found. The city was cold, the wind harsh against her skin, but she barely noticed. Each step felt like a betrayal of the woman she was trying to become.
But she went anyway.
Because love, especially the kind that wounds, doesn't die quietly. It claws its way back. Lucien opened the door shirtless, as if nothing had happened. Took you long enough, he said with a smirk. No apology. No affection. Just that smug entitlement. He pulled her inside without asking how she was, without asking why she hadn't answered in days. His kisses were rough, his hands familiar, his presence overwhelming. For a moment, she melted, falling into old patterns. Her body remembered how to respond to his. But her heart didn't. Something inside her had changed. She didn't feel safe. She felt small. And when he whispered, "You missed me, didn't you?" she couldn't bring herself to lie this time. She stared at him and realized he didn't see her. He saw convenience, surrender, obsession, but never love. Afterward, he lit a cigarette and didn't offer her a blanket. She sat on the edge of the bed, naked and exposed, staring at the floor. You still get too emotional, he said casually, blowing smoke toward the ceiling. It's not attractive, you know. Her fingers dug into her knees as her throat burned with swallowed screams. You always ruin things, he added, voice low. That's why I need a break sometimes. You suffocate me. Alara turned to him slowly, something like clarity slicing through her chest. Then why do you always come back? He looked surprised, like he hadn't expected her to speak. Because I know you'll always let me. That was the moment it broke. Not her heart, not her spirit, but the illusion that what they had was love. She dressed in silence, every movement heavy with grief. He didn't ask her to stay. He never did. And this time, she didn't want him to. She looked around the room, at the bed they once made love in, the couch where she cried waiting for him, the empty bottles and scattered clothes, and it all felt wrong. Like she had walked into a memory and realized it was a nightmare. As she reached the door, he called after her. Don't be dramatic again, Alara. You'll come back. You always do. She turned, one hand on the handle, her voice soft but steady. Not this time.
He laughed.
You say that every time. She nodded. But this time I believe it. And then she walked out not because it didn't hurt, but because staying had begun to hurt more. Outside, the cold air hit her like a blessing. She didn't cry. Not yet. Her eyes were dry, her chest hollow, but there was something sharp and alive building inside her. Anger. Not just at Lucien, but at herself. For every time she stayed. for every apology she made on his behalf, for the years she lost trying to make a broken boy into a whole love. She walked for miles, past flickering street lamps and dark windows, until her legs ached and her heart felt less heavy. She whispered one word to the night: enough. It wasn't a declaration. It wasn't a promise. It was a quiet funeral for the love she buried in his bed. Tomorrow, she would still grieve, still shake, still miss him. But tonight, she walked away. And that was something. Ilara never imagined she could smile without the weight of Lucien's shadow hanging over her. But when she met Adrien, everything shifted. He was patient, kind, and saw her, not just the broken pieces but the strength beneath. Their conversations were effortless, filled with genuine laughter and quiet moments that felt like safety. For the first time in years, Ilara woke up without dread, her heart lighter with hope. Adrien didn't rush her. He never demanded more than she could give. He held her hand through her fears, never turning away when tears came. She realized love wasn't supposed to hurt like before. It could heal and grow, slowly and beautifully. With Adrien, love was gentle, not a battlefield. Every day felt like a promise of something better. Meanwhile, Lucien spiraled into a chaos of regret and confusion. When Ilara stopped answering, when she vanished from his life for good, the reality hit him harder than any argument or fight had before. He replayed every cruel word, every moment he took her for granted, and it shattered something inside. Nights were the worst, empty beds and silent phones mocking him with their stillness. He saw her laughter and others' smiles and felt the sting of jealousy bite deeper than he expected. He couldn't understand how he had lost the one person who had loved him despite his flaws. His pride, once armor, crumbled to dust, leaving behind raw remorse. In his loneliness, Lucien realized what true love meant too late. And the pain of losing Ilara was a storm he couldn't weather. Ilara's heart wasn't untouched by her past, but with Adrien, the scars softened. He never asked her to forget Lucien or the hurt she endured. He only wanted to stand beside her as she healed. There were days when shadows still crept in, but Adrien's steady presence helped push them back. She learned to trust again, to believe that she deserved kindness, respect, and tenderness. Together, they built something new, a love rooted in honesty and care, unlike the fractured one she left behind. Ilara's tears were now tears of relief and joy, not pain or humiliation. She was no longer defined by her past, but by the courage it took to move forward. Adrien's love wasn't a replacement. It was a transformation. A second chance at happiness she never thought possible. And in his arms, Ilara found peace. Lucien's regret turned into a quiet obsession. He watched from afar as Ilara's smile grew brighter, as Adrien treated her like a treasure. He confronted his loneliness and faced the truth he had long ignored. He had lost the most precious thing because he refused to change. The nights he once spent chasing reckless thrills were now filled with thoughts of what might have been. He tried to reach out, to apologize, but the damage was done. Ilara no longer answered his calls or texts. Her heart was closed to him forever. Lucien's pain was bitter, full of if-onlys and what-ifs. He learned that love is not possession but respect and care, and that he had lost both. His soul ached with the emptiness of regret, a lesson paid for too dearly. In the quiet dawn of her new life, Ilara whispered a farewell to the past. She had survived heartbreak, humiliation, and the darkness of a love that almost broke her. Now, she embraced the light of a future she chose for herself, one filled with hope, kindness, and genuine connection. Lucien's loss was her liberation. As she walked forward with Adrien beside her, she no longer feared being vulnerable. She understood that true love is patient and kind, not cruel or fleeting. Ilara's story wasn't just about pain, but about rebirth. And with every step she took, she wrote a new chapter, one where she was whole again, loved deeply, and finally free. The past would always be a part of her, but it no longer had power over her heart.